Okay, everyone sees the text? Let me make sure I got the right. Yeah, there we go. Okay, welcome back, everybody. Today we are going to continue the topic of the image of God. However, from a slightly different aspect of it. Okay, so just to paraphrase our previous class, we said the image of God is not something that's genetic. It's not something that you're born with. It's something that needs to be acquired. And it can only be acquired through education, proper education from somebody who does have the image of God. Right? We said, so what is this image of God? So, well, this image of God, at first, we understood it as maybe something more intellectual, right? It's this hadat hayetera hamitsuya benafsho shel adam, right? In a man's nefesh, right? So he has one part of the nefesh with the man's intellect, and in that part there is some extra kind of dat. But then when we dug down to see what is the meaning of this dat, we saw that it's not just intellectual understanding. However, it needs to be translated into a person's character. And so what is the likeness of God? We said in his image and in his likeness. We said ad she'idme lahen, right? So he acquires this dat until he resembles them, being the angels, being God. What does that mean, until he resembles them? The only way to resemble them is through your behavior, through proper behavior, right? So we saw that even a teacher, a rabbi, he could be a wise man if he's corrupt, if his character is corrupt. It's forbidden to study Torah from him. However, it says if he resembles an angel, right? The lips of the priest, right, preserve either wisdom, dat, or whatever it is that this dat is, which we later saw to be a proper characteristics. Right, and so they shall request to study Torah from him, because he is the angel of God. So what is resembling an angel? What is being angelic? It's all comes down to a person's proper behavior, and those are the only rabbis, really the only teachers you should be striving to study Torah from. Okay, and on the other hand, so if they are angels, what is the other side of that coin? Someone who is corrupted, he has a corrupt personality. He could be very intelligent, he could be very smart, he could be very cunning. However, if he hasn't acquired the proper characteristics, personality traits, he can use that intelligence and that intellect to bring tremendous destruction on the world. And we saw that Maimonides refers to these kind of people, and that's how he interprets the Midrashim that speak about Shedim, demons, as people lacking the image of God, who are capable of great destruction. All right? Okay, so we ended. Okay, so it's not anybody could have the image of God, anybody could lose the image of God, right? Anybody could acquire it. So what's so special about the Jewish people? He said, so that's today's class called Segulat Israel. What is the Segulah? What is the uniqueness of being part of the nation of Israel? So, well, we're going to go back to Ma'amad Har Sinai. We studied this pasuk at the beginning of our first course. Of course, then we were analyzing it from a more legal perspective. But now we're gonna look at it more at a philosophical perspective. It says, "Atem reitem asher asiti leMisraim." Right? You saw all that I have done to Egypt, to the Egyptians. "Va'esa etchem al kanfei nesharim, va'avi etchem elai." And I raised you on the wings of eagles, and I brought you to me. To me is where? Har Sinai. Ve'ata, and he says, and now, im shamoa tishmeu bekoli, right? If you listen to my voice, ushmartem et beriti, right? And you keep my covenant, vihiitem nisegula mikol ha'amim, and you shall be a special people among all the nations, kili kol ha'aretz, for the land belongs to me, right? So that's why I can freely contract this with you, make you special, raise you above the others. V'atem tiyuni mamlechet kohanim v'goy kadosh, and you shall be unto me a priestly nation and a holy nation. Ele hadevarim asher tdaber bnei Yisrael. These are the things you shall speak to the people of Israel. This is God speaking to Moshe, saying these are the terms of the covenant that we're going to make, right? Go speak this to the people, see if they accept the terms. And over here, this pasuk is actually, it's very misunderstood. It's very misunderstood. It seems to be that God is conditioning us being unique, and that's especially how the Christians understand it. It's conditioned in our following of the Torah. And at a time where the nation, or let's say most of the nation, does not keep the mitzvot of the Torah, then we are no longer this Am Segula, this special, unique nation unto God. We are no longer the chosen people. However, people who understand it this way, they didn't understand the terms of the covenant properly. Listen carefully. Va'ata. Now, what is the condition and what is the result? It says, Im shamoa tishmeu bekoli. This is one. Listen to me, listen to my voice. Towards the end of the class, we'll understand what that really means. Ushmartem et beriti, and you kept my covenant, meaning you accept my covenant. Vitim li segula mikol ha'amim, and you shall be the chosen people. Kili kol ha'aretz, right? If you do all this, when? Well, now. If you accept this covenant, these terms, then he says, if you do all of that and keep the terms of the covenant, then atem tiyuni mamlechet kohanim v'goy kadosh. Then you shall be a priestly nation, you shall be a big kingdom, you shall be a strong empire. That didn't always happen, right? When we abandoned the Torah, when we stopped following the mitzvot, then God sent enemies and they destroyed our kingdom and sent us out into exile. However, that didn't stop us from being the chosen people. That just, we no longer had the benefits of being a strong kingdom, a priestly kingdom properly representing God to the entire nations. So this is what the segula, what is the segula? What is this unique quality of Am Yisrael? So we're going to go to see Rabbi Yehuda HaLevi, right? He was also from that famous yeshiva of Rabbi Ishaq al-Fasi in Spain, lived about a generation or two, about like a generation and a half to 2 generations before Maimonides, in the same yeshiva as Maimonides in Cordoba. So he has a famous book called Sefer HaKuzari, recording a fictional discussion between the king of Khuzar, who converted along with his nation to Judaism. I mean, this is a real historic event. However, it happened maybe 200 years before Sefer HaKuzari was written. And so he took this legend that we have, this story of the king of Khuzar converting to Judaism, and he kind of built a book of what could have been the discussion that this king of Khuzar had with one of the Hachamim at the time, in order to be convinced that Judaism is a worthy religion to convert to. He says, Harpeni me'at, he's responding. Amar Haver, Haver is the Chacham. Harpeni me'at at sha'avaer etzlecha gidulat ha'am. Right, just hold on a minute, and I'm going to explain to you this greatness of this nation. V'day li le'ed she'Hashem beharam le'am ul'umma miben ummot ha'olam. Right, and it should suffice that enough testimony that God chose them to be a unique nation from all the others. All right, without getting into why Judaism is right and why we're better than everyone else, it's enough that you know that God chose us. And this is after his discussion with the Muslims and his discussion with the Christians, and everyone says, right, that everyone agrees with the Bible, with the Torah, and that God originally chose us. And then he says, "V'chol ha'inyan ha'elahi al hamonam ad shehigiu kulam il ma'alat ha'dibur." All right, and the application, right, of ha'inyan ha'elahi, he calls it, some sort of divine essence, some sort of divinity, right, that reached the masses. Because up until then, this divine thing, which we studied and understood to be the image of God, right, it didn't apply to the masses. It applied to individuals who were properly educated. He says, but here with the nation, we see it was applied to the entire nation, to the point where all of them reached the certain level called ma'alat hadibur. Dibur is speech. We said, okay, there's the tzomeach, right? There's the domem. Domem is inanimate things. And then there's the tzomeach, vegetation that grows on top of it. It's a higher form of life. On top of that, there's the animal world. It's a higher form of life. And above that, we used to say there's ma'alat hadibur or medaber, people who can communicate, think, intellect. But here it says when they all reach this ma'alat hadibur, there's one level above that. That's the level of communicating with God. Right? And also the women, they all prophesied. Everybody reached prophecy. Ahar shelo haya hal ha'inyan ha'elahi ki im bihidim mibnei adam ahar adam harishon. Right? This is after a period that since Adam all the way until that point in history, this image of God only applied to individuals. In every generation, there was maybe one or two individuals who had this image of God. Right? Because Adam, when he was created, he was completely perfect. And his soul, his nefesh, we understood the nefesh to be, so to speak, the programming of his body, and that's also where his intellect is. All of that was created in perfection. V'hasechel, and his intellect, al tachlit ma shebayacholet ha'enoshi. right? Adam Harishon's intellect was the perfect intellect that man can have. Right? And this divine power, he calls it over here, this divine force, right? This comes after, above the intellect. רצוני לומר, מעלה אשר בה ידבק באלוהים וברוחניים. He says, what do I mean by this koach ilahi, by this divine force? It's this thing, it's this stage, this level where man is connected to God and to the angels. באלוהים וברוחניים. וידע האמיתות מבלי לימוד, אבל במחשבה קלה. Says not only that, but he also had all the knowledge of the world without any need to go deep into meditation, just slightly ponder on a question, and he was able to figure it out right away. And he's already considered to be Ben Elohim, right? One of the sons of God. What does it mean, sons of God? As we saw, Bnei HaNevi'im, the sons of the prophets were not biological sons of the prophets, but the students, the people going in their path. And so Adam was considered to be Ben Elohim, which means Ben Elohim, meaning one of these beings following in the path of divinity. And all those that are like him from his seed are Bnei Elohim, are also people who follow in this path until they got corrupted. They too got corrupted. We see this in Bereshit, where it says, Vayru b'nei ha'elohim et benot ha'adam, right? And the sons of God, right, saw the daughters of man. This is the Bnei Elohim it's talking about. The descendants of Adam Harishon, or the descendants of those sons of Adam Harishon who had the image of God, who eventually got corrupted. Veholid banim rabbim, and Adam had many children. He had many sons. ולא היה מהם ראוי להיות במקום אדם אלא הבל, כי הוא היה דומה לו. And out of all of his sons, he only had one who was able to take his place. There was only one who was like him with this image of God, and this was Heaven. Right? Last week we saw that, according to Maimonides, only Seth had Senem Elohim. According to the Yehuda HaNevi, Hevel also had Senem Elohim. None of the other sons did. וכאשר הרגו קין אחים, מפני קנאתו בו על המעלה הזאת, נתן לו תחתיו שת. Right? But then Hevel was murdered by his brother Cain. Right? Cain, why did he murder him? Out of jealousy, because he was living on this higher level, because he had the image of God, and so he got jealous and he murdered him. Then Atano tahtav shet. And then so instead of Hevel, he had another son who was also raised in this divine path and had this image of God, and that was Seth. Vayad domele Adam, right? And so he resembled man, or resembled Adam. Resembled in what way? In that he had this image of God. V'haya segula. Segula. What is segula? It says he was like, he was special. V'lev, like the heart, v'zulato keklipa, and everyone else around were like the shell or the wrapper. Like you have a nice candy with the wrapper, so you have the special part that's inside, and then you have the wrapper that's you throw to the garbage. So he says he was the segula, and everyone else was like the wrapper. Uzgulat Shet Enosh, and Shet also, he had sons. One of them was his segula, and that was Enosh. And all the rest of humanity says about all of them, if you read through Bereshit, It says Vayolet Banim Ubanot, right? It says, and he had sons and daughters. However, it usually only specifies one by name, because that one by name is the one that was special and had this had this image of God. וכן הגיע העניין עד נוח ביחידים, היו לבבות דומים לאדם ונקראים בני אלוהים. Right? And so this went on from Adam all the way down to Noah. Right? Every generation there was maybe one person with this image of God, similar to man, and these people are referred to in the Torah as Bnei Elohim, the sons of God. Shelemim bebriatam ubemidotam ubarichut hayamim ubachochmot ubayicholet. Right, these people were perfect in their health, in their size. They were large. They lived very long lives. They had a lot of wisdom, and they were very capable. Right, and according to their years, their lifespan, do we calculate how many years passed from Adam to Noah? We only count those people with the image of God. And so too from Noah until we reach Abraham. ואפשר שהיה מהם מי שלא דבק בו העניין האלוהי כתרח. And there could be that there were those, even in an entire generation, someone who didn't have this image of God, such as Terach. Terach was the father of Abraham. He was the son of Evid. Evid had, his son Terach didn't have the image of God, and his son Abraham, the grandson of Evid, had the image of God. So it even could skip a generation. Abraham beno, however, Abraham, the son of Terah, hayat talmid le'avi aviv Evid. He was the student, the pupil of his grandfather Evid. So again, we see how is this image of God transmitted from one person to another? Always through education. ועוד שהשיג נוח בעצמו. And Noah was very special, unique, in that he didn't have any special teacher to teach him. He managed to acquire it on his own. He was able to meditate on ideas about God and view the world and see how God, figure out for himself how God guides the world and emulate those same characteristics into his own personality. So it is possible. It's very rare and difficult, but it is possible that somebody special will be able to acquire this image of God on his own. והיה העניין האלוהי דבק בהם מאבות אבותם אל בני בנים. Right, and this image of God, this divine thing, force, would go sometimes from grandfather to grandson. ואברהם סגולת עבר ותלמידו, ועל כן נקרא עברי. And so Abraham was the unique one of Evid, the descendants of Evid, the grandson of Evid. He was his student, and therefore he is referred to as Abraham HaIvri. The Hebrew, what does that mean? The Hebrew, the son or the descendant of Evid. Ve'ever haya sigulat Shem, and Evid was that unique one from the descendants of Shem. Shem was from Noah, right? V'Shem haya sigulat Noah, and all of these individuals who have this image of God are referred to as the Segula, the special, the unique one, or the chosen one. So what does this mean, Segulat Israel? Right? I'm already hinting to the meaning of it. All right, so the Shem Haya Segulat Noah, Shem, he was the special one from the sons of Noah. מפני שהוא יורש האקלים עם השבים, אשר אמצעיתם וחמדתם ארץ כנען, אדמת הנבואה. And okay, and he also is, Shem, Noah, he had three sons, Shem, Ham, and Yefet, right? Ham went down to, inherited Africa, Yefet got Europe, and Shem got the Middle East. And it says, and the special part of the Middle East is the land of Canaan. And what's so special about it? It says this is the land of prophecy. It says if you're going to have people who are capable of prophecy, it's a shame to send them to England where they're going to be depressed all the time, right? Or to send them to extremely hot desert nations. He says, no, you're going to send them to a place that has nice climates. Yoresh ha'aklinim ha'shavim has moderate climates, which the center of it and the special piece of land there is the land of Canaan, which is capable of producing prophets. V'yatsa Yefet el Tzafon, v'Ham el Darom, right? Yefet went to the north, to Europe, and Ham went down to the south, right, and inherited Africa. Uzgulat Avraham mikol banav Yitzhak. And Avraham also he had Ishmael, right, and he had Yitzhak, and he also had other sons. He says, but out of all of his sons, he had one that was unique, who received the Selem Elohim, the image of God, and that was Yitzhak. והרחיק כל בניו מהארץ הזאת המסוגלת, כדי שתהיה מיוחדת לישחק. All of his other sons and children, he sent away from the land of Israel because it's a unique land that generates prophets, and it's a shame to have people who are incapable of reaching prophecy inherit this land. וזגולת ישחק יעקב. And Ishaq also had sons, but he had Esav and Yaakov. It says, but Yaakov was the one who had this image of God. And therefore, V'nidha Esav Achiv, Mipinish Zacha Yaakov Ba'aretz Ahim. So Esav, he was also sent away, right? He got the area of, on the other side of the Jordan, and Yaakov inherited the land of Israel. ובני יעקב כולם סגולה. However, now we reach a turning point in history. Up until now, this image of God is being passed down from individual to individual, right? In every generation, sometimes even skipping a generation. However, the sons of Yaakov, kulam segula, they all have this special, unique quality. They all have this image of God. Kulam re'uyim la'inyan ha'elahi. Right? They are all capable of this image of God, and they're all capable of potentially becoming prophets. And so they were designated the special land that can generate prophets, right? It was split up between all of the sons of Yaakov. וזה היה תחילת כל העניין האלוהי על קהל, אחרי אשר לא היה נמצא כי אם ביחידים. And this is the first time that the image of God is applied to a congregation, to a group of people, after these few thousand years already that passed from Adam until Yaakov and his sons, which had only was transmitted to individuals, and sometimes even skipping a generation. So what happened here? What was so special all of a sudden about Yaakov and his sons that all of a sudden all of them have this Tzenim Elohim? And by the way, I just want to point out, right? We're going to see soon that these sons of Yaakov, they weren't always such great tzaddikim, you know? They attempted to murder their brother. They sold him into slavery, right? Yehuda, one of our maybe most iconic and greatest characters, you know, ended up sleeping with his daughter-in-law, and then he wanted to have her executed. But what happened here all of a sudden? That this image of God, the special, unique quality, now applies to an entire family. Any ideas?
They descended all to Mitzrayim.
Okay.
Is
Do
it
you,
because
do you think that helped them?
I think that differentiated them from the band Mitzrayim, and they also could grow independent.
The influence that Mitzrayim had on them was actually very negative. And it was almost what ruined the Jewish people from having this Tzenim Elohim. Any more suggestions?
To fulfill the promise to Abraham, Abraham and his kakabino, and to Jacob Abino.
Can I try?
Yeah, sorry, who just spoke? Who said something?
To fulfill the promise of Hashem to Abraham, Yitzchak, and Jacob Abino, that they will become a great nation.
Okay, so there was a promise. You said it's because of the promise. Okay.
Just a question. Could it have something to do, because we usually say that David was like a great tzaddik, because like King David is this amazing tzaddik, but King David did a lot of bad things as well, but he made tshuva. He repented on them when it became clear to him.
Okay.
So could it be something similar?
That's a very strong quality with Yehuda as well, with the ancestors, right?
Is that maybe why? Because if they were made aware that they were erring according to Hashem's will, that they would.
All right, that's a nice point, but that doesn't explain yet why all of a sudden they have, as an entire group, they all have this image of God. One question: what gives someone? How does one acquire the image of God?
They study Torah. Jacob Abino teach them Torah.
Right, they studied. They were educated. But this is the first time that we see that they were all educated. Look at this. Back to Maimonides. He's just continuing. It's as if he's continuing Rabbi Yehuda Levi. Says Yaakov Avinu limed banav kulam. He says Yaakov Avinu, he educated all of his sons. V'hivdil Levi uminahu rosh v'hoshivo b'yeshiva lelamed derech Hashem v'lishmor misvat Avraham. He says he went a step further. He didn't just educate them all. He built this institute. He took Levi and he separated Levi. He put him in charge of the education of the brothers. He says he made him head of teaching Torah, which, by the way, continues And that's Levi's job in Am Yisrael, is to teach Torah forever. So he took Levi and he said, you're in charge, because Levi is very wise. He's great, maybe he's very charismatic. He knows how to teach well. And he says, okay, so Levi, you're going to be in charge of educating everybody. Shiva put him in like an academy. And he was the head of this academy. For the sole purpose, lelamed derech Hashem, to teach the ways of God, v'lishmor mizvat Avraham, and to teach the laws that Abraham was commanded, and to teach all the brothers how to keep it. V'sivayit banav shelo yafsiku mibnei levi memune achar memune, k'dei shelo tishakach halimud. And he commanded all of his sons to make sure that there's always someone from the tribe of Levi who is in charge of teaching Torah, so that the education doesn't get lost, that the Torah doesn't get forgotten. והיה הדבר הולך ומתגבר בבני יעקב ובנלווים עליהם, ונעשת בעולם אומה שהיא יודעת את השם. Says, and the result of this was, it wasn't just Yaakov's sons, Levi and all of his, all the 12 tribes. He says they had an academy in place, and this image of God was intensifying, not just in them, but in anyone who joined them. So there's the brothers, and there's shepherds, and they have helpers, and they have servants, and they have more children too. And all of them are now getting an education. And they are all getting this image of God. Until we reach a point where there is a nation. It says, B'shiv'im nefesh yarad Yaakov Misraima. They came down with 70 people. It was already like a mini nation coming down to Egypt. And they all have Sedem Elohim. Till there is a nation, Ba'olam, Ummah shehi yodat, that knows God. What does that mean, knows God? Not just the knowledge of God, but behaves in accordance to God's ways and his teachings. However, right, but the Jews in Egypt spent a lot of time in Egypt. They were badly influenced by the Egyptians. וחזרו ללמוד מעשיהן ולעבוד כוכבים כמותן. And they, over the years, they started adopting the behaviors of the Egyptians, the corrupt behaviors of the Egyptians, and they fell into paganism again. Except for the tribe of Levi, who never worshipped idols and kept themselves separated from the ways of the Egyptians. But in the tribe of Levi, they never descended into paganism. וכמעט קט היה העיקר ששתל אברהם נעקר וחוזרים בני יעקב לטעות העולם ותהיותיהם. And almost completely the Jewish people or the sons of Yaakov completely left these teachings and went back to the mistakes and the wrong behavior of all the other nations. And then, this is after 200 years of being in Egypt, ומאהבת השם אותנו ומשומרו את השבועה לאברהם אבינו עשה משה. However, out of God's love for us, and here, who mentioned the oath, the promise to Abraham. So he says, and remembering the promise he made to Abraham, says he made Moshe. He made Moshe, he sent us Moshe. Says the Rabbeinu, our master, our teacher, V'Rabban shel kol ha-nevi'im u'shlahu. Our master and the master of all the prophets, and he sent him to us. Kivan shenitnaba Moshe Rabbeinu ובחר השם ישראל לנחלה, הכתירן במצוות והודיעם דרך עבודתו. He says, so he sent Moshe. Moshe came to us. Moshe prophesied. And then God chose us to be his portion, his legacy in the world. And in order to do that, it says, הכתירן במצוות. He crowned them with commandments, with mitzvot, and taught us taught us the proper way to worship God, not just, philosophically in a yeshiva, but he gave us practical mitzvot to do in order to worship him and maintain this Tselem Elohim, this image of God. All right, so up until here is the brief history of the image of God in humanity. And now, the next section, we're going to see what does that mean by crowning us with mitzvot. What happened to categorically change the nature of the image of God, right? In order to instill it in the Jewish people forever. But before we move on, any questions about anything that we said up until now?
I have a question.
Yes, please.
That were the sons of Israel are blessed. The reason was that they were educated.
Right.
Had they been already educated from their childhood before they sold Joseph?
It would seem so.
Mm-hmm.
It would seem
But it
so.
takes time to develop them.
For instance, because we know Yosef had the image of God, and he was the youngest of them. So even when you have the image of God, you could still do wrong things. And by the way, sinning doesn't destroy, or sometimes it does, but not every sin means you don't have the image of God anymore.
Yeah.
They're educated, right? They're going, they're walking the path of the righteous, but sometimes even the most righteous people make mistakes and do wrong things.
But is it Israel, because Israel intended to bless everyone? Is that why he educated everyone, or is regardless? He didn't know. Did he know that he would bless everyone?
You're saying because he intended to bless everyone, so he educated them.
Yeah, I'm asking if there was intention, or he just started educating and
Could be, because we already received the blessing from Abraham.
Yes. But was Esau also educated?
So it seems that he didn't have the right education, or he was still too corrupt.
Okay.
So even if he tried to be educated, we saw Yaakov really dedicated himself to the studies of Torah. While Esau, maybe he kind of was like sitting in the class, but he wasn't really paying attention. His mind was always on what's the next animal I'm gonna hunt down and kill.
So education is the reason why they had images of
Right. Exactly. It all comes from education.
I see. Okay. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. Any other questions before we continue?
I would like just to complete that thought about Mitzrayim. In the prophet Hosea, there is a verse who says, Mi Mitzrayim karati et beni. So I think that implies that the image were on all of Jacob's sons, it was not evident until the Matan Torah.
Right, so they came down with Senem Elohim.
Yeah.
Maybe over time, you know, it also still intensified, but over like 200 years of being there, slowly, they're learning from the wicked ways of the Egyptian, and some of them are losing this education. And Hashem, he didn't want us to all completely lose it. So he sent Moshe to take us out and to do something special, which we'll study about soon, in order to make sure that we maintain this Senem Elohim. The Chachamim say that went through almost every single one of the 49 gates of impurity in Mitzrayim. Says if there's one more, we would have been lost. We would have gone through the 50th gate. Right? It says, Mem techa are tum'ah. It says, and he pulled us out right before.
Also, this hard work that they were submitted to, it can corrupt, damage the soul, that it cannot occupy.
Even the hard work, you have to understand it. It comes at gradually. It's a gradual process.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get into the concept of slavery. We'll dedicate like a class to that. It'll be not really part of this course. But don't think that even the slavery and the hardships of Mitzrayim is necessarily that different than what we would call today modern slavery. Modern slavery being like in corporate America, working from when you wake up till you go to bed, right? People couldn't have babies then. Today people are educated also in the United States. If you want to pursue a career, then don't get pregnant, right? If you want to be a top lawyer, then forget about your family ambitions. That's also a form of slavery, and maybe in Mitzrayim it was something a little bit similar to that.
Yes, and right, the tribe of Levi, they were the unique that didn't have to go to this.
Right. Why? It's because in the end, I think it was also kind of like a choice that people made to be part of this Egyptian society.
Oh, I see. But the Leviim were never subject to the.
Right. Although in the end, when it was forced slavery, that would have probably been like the later stage of Egyptian slavery. We see that they too suffered under it, because we see Moshe was a Levi and his father, you know, Amram, you know, and then they hid him in the teva and put him in the sea. So in the end, they were all affected, but they never lost sight of their education and strayed from the proper path. Okay, so you know what? I see we're already reaching the end of the class, and maybe we'll keep this part for next time, since it's a big topic of what actually took place in Ma'amad Har Sinai, right? That made this drastic change in Senem Elohim now being part of applying to an entire nation, and also what makes it stay this way forever. So I think we'll continue that next week, since it's a topic on its own. And so, if there's any more questions, please. All right, I guess that's it.
Okay. Thank you,
All
Sami.
right.